Okay, welcome to our Language of the Prophet series. So today we have a double parsha, but we'll just be doing the first Aliyah from the first Torah portion, which is Vayaqheyl, right? So it's and he gathered from Kehal. Okay, Vayaqhel. Okay, so let me laser. Okay. Yeah, I hear somebody in the kitchen. I need to find the control so I can mute you. Sorry, let's see. Again, you guys are allowed to talk. It's fine. But please, if you just got background noise going on, that's very distracting. Oh, hallelujah, sweet silence. All right, so there's the first Aliyah. This is a nice reproduction of the Mishkan I found online. Looks kind of like what the Mishkan probably looked like. Okay. And for the first Aliyah, it's Shemot chapter 35, verses 1 through 20. So we've got 20 verses we're going to go through today, which is about an average size of a chapter in the Torah, around 22 verses or so, something like that. And I'm just waiting on the computer. It froze up. It's trying to change slides. Come on. Let's be Shabbistic. PowerPoint is not responding. I will wait. Come on, you can do it. Hourglass. Sorry, you gotta walk around the stuff. I'm talking already. I just hit mute. Hold on. There we go. It actually updated. Yay! Baruch Hashem. Okay. So if we look here, you'll see we start right on the first verse. There's an aleph there. So let's go. Let's get going. So starting with verse aleph, we have monach, revi'i, our first two accent marks. Vayaqheyl, Vayaqheyl Moshe, et kol adat, bnei Yisrael, vayomer aleihem. Okay, and there's our etnachta, or etnach, atnach, however you like to call the wishbone guy. And maybe the computer will draw. There we go. So kahal, you should be able to figure this out, even if you don't know this verb. So kahal, it's like a kahal. This is the verb that the noun kahal comes from. So kahal is an assembly, right? A group of people gathering, and the verb kahal is to gather together. So yakhel this is actually, it's hard to recognize. It's a he-fil form. So sometimes with he-fil, we have the yod here, right, before the third root letter showing us, but that yod sometimes will come down and the chirik will lengthen to its seri instead. So that's kind of a marker that helps you to see that it's he-fil, that it's causative and noun. So cause to gather, cause to be in a group, right? So that's to gather. So yakhel is he will gather. It can also mean may he gather. And then the vav changes it. And here you'll see the mazrit, they pointed it nicely. So the normal pointing, when you have an imperfect verb and you want to attach the vav consecutive, the vav conversive, whatever you want to call that guy, is to put a patach under the vav and a dagesh in the first letter. But oftentimes that dagesh is left off, especially in phrases that occur very, very often, like vayehi, right? And it was, but you still pronounce it as if the dagesh is there. Vayehi. We don't say vayhi, we say vayehi, right? So the mazrits, they will often leave the dagesh off in that case. But here, it's a different verb that doesn't show up all over the place, so they did it nicely. They followed the formula. Patach, dagesh. Okay. So then Moshe gathered. So the question is, when is the then? What's he gathering? Oh, he's gathering et kol adat bnei Yisrael. Okay, so he's gathering. Here's the object marker. Kol adat bnei Yisrael. Okay, so this word is eda, which is the assembly or the congregation. And you guys recognize the grammatical form it's in? What's the grammatical form? Anybody out there? The adat.
Construct
Go ahead.
that's a noun from a do.
Okay, it's related to.
It's because of the
Sorry, my computer didn't draw properly. So it is a noun, you're right, but why is it adat instead of eda? Why is it a tav at the end? Why won't this erase? Erase. Computer's really working hard today. There we go. Like feminine, Eda, goes back to its ancient Tav ending.
Israel.
Okay, you're right. It is about Israel.
Israel is feminine.
What's that?
Israel is feminine.
Nope, that's not what's going on there. Ada is feminine, right? But I'm curious, I'm asking you guys, you know this, maybe I just asked it strangely. Okay, so I'm trying to find out why do we have the tav instead of a hey at the end of Ada? Why is it going back to this ancient Hebrew, pre-biblical form of tav? Ada becomes adat, win. Even if you don't know this word, you should be able to figure this out. Win.
Yeah, it's a possession, something like Torah, it becomes Torah.
That's right.
If
That's
it
the pattern. Yep, that's the pattern.
relates to relating to something.
Okay, what's it called? Golly, my computer's really slow right now. It doesn't want to. There we go. It's kind of drawing it. Hopefully, the color marker I'm trying to do will jog your memories. What's the name of this grammatical term?
I believe I heard Dr. Rivera, he said construct.
Oh, did you say construct? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Okay, great, correct. Correct. So it's a construct. It's a construct chain, right? So because Yisrael is
Yeah,
definite, the whole thing is definite, right, guys? So we have a big chain with 3 words. So Adat B'nai Yisrael, we have to put the on everything now. The congregation of the children of Israel. And I know some older translations, they'll say the sons of Israel, but that's not really how this word works. Banim means children. And like I've been trying to open up your minds lately to the fact that a lot of Hebrew words, they have kind of 2 nuances, right? At least 2. So they have like a high level nuance from 20,000 feet up in the air, like a general capture. So the example we'll get into later today is malacha, right? Malacha means any kind of work. But if you're down on a low level and it's in relation to other things, if there's something else next to it, like a different kind, like a specific kind of work, like avodah, like digging ditches, carrying things around, then malacha no longer means just general work. Instead, it means like blue collar work, like planning, projecting, like that kind of thing, right? Making a project. Okay? So this happens with many words. Mitzvah. What's mitzvah mean, guys? Mitzvah. Mitzvah? Anybody?
It's a command.
That's right. Right. Command. Command. Exactly. And so mitzvah means a commandment. That's the 20,000 feet up in the air definition, right? It's the in general, if there's not other words around it that have to do with kinds of commands, then it just means commandment. So when we say there are 613 mitzvot, 613 commandments that our sages have identified, it's talking about all the kinds of commandments, right? It's talking about the 10 commandments. It's talking about the pikudim, right? The various precepts. It's talking about the chokim, or the statutes that are given, and we don't know why they're given. We don't know the reason, like shatnez, like wearing mixed types of fabrics in a garment, right? It's talking about the mitzvot, and here you're getting it. So the low level, when it's surrounded by these other words, it's not just commandment anymore. And it's hard to bring into English. It's kind of wordy. But when you have mitzvahs surrounded by other words that have to do with other kinds of mitzvahs, like specific kinds of commandments, like we're dividing it into categories, commandments that we don't have a reason for. Mishpatim, they're commandments that are judgments that have been made by the religious courts that Adonai commanded to make, right? Or you have the pikudim, you have the various statutes, like enumerations of things that fit into different types of mishpat, right? And then you have mitzvah. He no longer is his 10,000 feet definition. Now it means a commandment which a reason is given for keeping the commandment, like a benefit is given. And the go-to example I like to give is from the Barot, the 10 Commandments, the kibed et avicha v'et imecha, right? Honor your parents. Because the commandment, the mitzvah, goes on to say, lema'an, so that ya'arichun yamecha ahal damasher, so that your days will be lengthened in the land which I swore to your forefathers. Okay, so that's the low-level mitzvah. When it's surrounded by other words that are of the same genre, it takes on its more specific meaning. Malacha, high definition, is any kind of work. Low-level definition, when it's surrounded by other specific kinds of work, means like blue-collar work, stuff that doesn't use a lot of calories. You're sitting in an air-conditioned office and you're clicking on a computer, right? It's not like digging ditches, right? That's malacha, okay? Or you're planning something, you're doing architecture design or something, okay? Mitzvah, high level, any kind of commandment, just like Doc said. Low level, when it's surrounded by other nuanced words about commandments, it means a commandment for which a reason is given for keeping the commandment, right? So that you shall prolong your days, so that you don't make Adonai angry and you don't get vomited out of the land, so that you might be blessed, so that etc. etc. Those are the low level meaning of mitzvot. Everybody's with me? So many words in Hebrew are this way. And this confuses people because they'll just learn a gloss, right? Or they might not be confused, but they miss out on the more specific information that the text is communicating, right? Or they'll learn a definition in English, which really nobody even knows the difference in English. Like if you tell a Native American speaker, okay, well, I'm talking about a statute, or I'm talking about a judgment, or I'm talking about a commandment, or I'm talking about really most people don't realize what those differences are even in English. And so it's good to have this understanding that the Hebrew words, if it has a high level meaning, but then you see it surrounded by synonyms, stop and think. The text is telling us more. Okay? It's telling us a bit more there. So in the case of banim, banim means children. That's the high level meaning of the word. If it's in context of, if the surrounding synonym, like a kind of child, is banot, daughters, then we translate it more specifically as sons. You see? So when people say, oh, that doesn't mean children of Israel, that's sons of Israel. No, it's children of Israel. That's the 10,000 foot definition, and we don't have something else in context to force it to be a male. You understand? So it's the men and the women. Okay. So Kol Adat Bnei Israel, all the assembly of the children of Israel. Any questions so far? All right, let's roll. Vayomer Alehem, and he said, Alehem, what's Alehem? Unto them. Very good. Okay. Now we're getting the quotes from him. Ele hadevarim asher tziva Adonai la'asot otam. So, ele, what's ele mean?
These are the words.
Nice. Oh, go ahead. Keep going. These are the words. Asher.
These are the words which
Tziva.
Which Adonai commanded
La'asot.
do.
Nice.
For them.
Nice, to do them, right? La'asot, to do or to make them. So this one, asot, it's from asa with a hey at the end, right? So we would have a hey there, to do or to make, and it's the infinitive form, right? In case anybody missed that. So asa, it's what kind of verb? If it ends in a hey, what kind of verb is that?
A double weak verb.
Hey.
Lamed hey verb. Lamed hey.
Hey.
Yep. And for some reason, my computer drew what looks like a lambda. It just ignored the horizontal stroke. Imagine that's a hey, folks. That's right. The lamed hey. You're right. Also, Doc, it is a weak verb. It's one of the many kinds of weak verbs, right? So because the hey disappears. So that's just what happened here. When you put in the infinitive, it goes back to its ancient tav ending. A lot of these heys in ancient times were tav. So la'asot, the infinitive to do. Now let's look at this la'asot, what's going on here. Does anybody know where there's a patach? So when you form the infinitive, you put the inseparable preposition lamed in front of it. So what vowel marker does lamed like to have? What does it try to have first?
Shiwa.
Nice. Okay, so why is it a patach here? What's happening there?
There's an article.
You're close.
To
You're
the.
close. It's not an article here. It's not an article. If it was an article, it'd be a comment, right? Because the ayin cannot take a dagesh, and it would come down, and we'd lengthen to the long vowel ayin. But you're thinking along the right lines. Anybody else want to take a stab at it? Why it's a patach?
It's a preposition. It's a preposition.
That's right. That's why it wants the schwa.
Not,
La.
not two schwas at the beginning.
Yes, tama. Exactly. We don't want to have two schwas in a row at the beginning of the word, right? So this is a composite schwa under the ayin, right? And so we would try to put a schwa under here, but then we're violating that rule. You cannot have two schwas in a row at the beginning of the word. So instead, we lengthen to the sound under this schwa, right? Usually, we would lengthen the chirik, right? If it was just a normal vocal schwa, I guess the idea is that chirik is a super short vowel, and so to go from a non-vowel, which is a vocal schwa, to the next step up is a chirik. But in this case, when it's composite, we copy this sound here, this one right here. So the patach gets copied underneath the lamed. Okay? So la asot. Good. Otam. Otam, this is just et plus pronominal suffix to do them, meaning mitzvot, right? Or in this case, hadevarim, the things, right? We call it the aser debarot, the 10 commandments, the 10 things. All right. Verse bait. Sheshet yamim te'aseh melacha uvayom hashevi'i Yihye lachem kodesh. Shabbat, Shabbaton ladonai.
Shabbat.
All right. So let's look at this. So sheshet, does anybody know this word? Sheshet?
It's a numeral.
Yes.
Six.
Yes, good. Good teamwork. Good job. 6, yamim.
6 days.
Nice.
You shall work.
Almost. Almost. It's a little bit tricky, this next one. Which binyan? Do you know the binyan?
Let me.
It's not kal.
Yeah.
Here's your hint. It's the tsere under the tav. See that's 2 dots, the tsere? That'll tell you the binyan. Te ase. Okay, I'll tell you what happens. In ancient times. Go ahead, what?
Is it Ipil?
Nope, not Hefil. Not Hefil. Sorry, I muted everybody because there was a phone ringing in the background. So in ancient times it would have been tin ase. Okay? But what happens is the noon, he wants to assimilate it into the ayin. Ayin doesn't accept it, so the short chirik, the I, like this I sound, gets lengthened to tsere. So it's nifal. Te ase, nifal. So that makes it passive. So something will be done. Okay? So let's see what the subject is. Melacha. What's melacha? Melacha. It's work. Yes, work. Very good. Any kind of work, right? This is the 10,000-foot definition, right? So we're not talking project planning. We're not talking blue-collar work in your air-conditioned office in a comfortable chair with lumbar support, right? Nope. 10,000-foot definition. Any kind of work. Malacha, it's a catch-all category, okay? So for 6 days, sheshet yamim te'aseh, shall be done, melacha, work. Uvayom hashevi'i. Okay, so why is it u instead of ve here? What's going on?
Bump.
Yes, bump schwa, exactly, bump. That's right. So we have a bait here, a labial, so he becomes u, right? That's the bump schwa rule or bump rule. So uvayom, but and then look the footprint from ha, in the day. Which one? Hashevi'i. What's that mean?
From 7.
Yes.
Sheba, 7.
Excellent. The 7th day, yihye, it shall be, or this can mean it is. Okay? Don't get confused if you've done modern Hebrew. Yihye, the time is different in biblical Hebrew. So this just means an ongoing action. This is continual. Okay? So it's now ongoing, and it also will be ongoing. It's continued. It's not complete. It's not nailed to the cross. It's not any of those things. Okay? It's ongoing. So uvayom hashevi'i yihye will be or is. It's just hard to bring it into English. Lachem. What's lachem?
To them, to you.
Yes, very good. To you, plural, right? For you all, kodesh. What's kodesh?
Holy.
Yes.
Holy.
Shabbat Shabbaton ladonai. What's that mean?
Shabbat to Hashem.
Almost. It's a bit.
Shabbat of rest.
Shabbat to
Shabbat of rest to
Sabbath of Sabbath.
Yeah, that's right.
Sabbath.
That's right. It's like really strong. You say, look, not just you might have known what a Shabbat was before, but this is really a Shabbat. It's Shabbat Shabbaton, like a Sabbath of Sabbaths, something like that. Okay, very good. For Hashem. Nice. Kol. What's kol? Kol. All. Very good. All or can mean anyone. All or anyone, right? Ha-ose. So ose, this is an active participle from asa. Okay? Active participle means one who does. So anyone
working.
Yeah, that's coming up.
Worker, the worker.
You're kind of right. You're right. It's the worker. So anyone, ha is like a share. Anyone who does, vo. What's vo?
In him.
In
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 it.
it.
In it.
Better,
In him.
better. In it, in it, in
Literally.
it, right? The O at the end, what's that referring to? What's that referring to? It's yom. It's referring,
again.
the O, you see bo? The pronominal
Yeah,
suffix
yes.
it, it's referring to this word just above, yom, right? So in it, meaning,
On the
that's
Shabbat.
right, on
Yes.
the Shabbat, exactly. So what do they do? Melacha. Anyone who does melacha? So here's just the overall, the thing I told you about melacha. Okay, I already explained it. Yumat. What's yumat?
Will die.
Yeah, it's not just will die.
Die.
This is, you haven't learned this binyan yet. This is the hofal or hufal, depending on what your grammar likes to call it. So this is the passive version of hefil. Hefil, okay? So I'm just going to temporarily mute everybody. If you got loud noises behind you, please make sure to mute when you're not talking. Okay? You're welcome to talk though. So hefil is to cause to die. This is hofal, so to be caused to die. So he will be executed. Anyone who does work on the Shabbat, which is ongoing, yumat, shall be executed. Okay? Verse Gimel 3. Lo tiva'aru eish b'chol mishavotechem. Okay, and there's our etnachta. That's our end of clause marker. Let's stop. Okay. Lo tiva'aru eish. Okay, so this is interesting. Even if you don't know this verb, bi'er is the verb. Bi'er. If you didn't know bi'er, let's see if you can figure out what it means in context. So what's lo? You know lo. Lo? Anybody? Don't?
Low.
No.
Yep. I won't wait too long.
No
not.
or
That's
not.
right. No or not. Good.
Never.
Don't, and then whatever the verb means, we know it's plural form. You shall not do H. What is H? Fire.
Fire.
So you can kind of get the idea. This is actually to burn fire, to kindle fire, to start fire. So you shall not kindle a fire. Okay? So a lot of times, people, I hear a lot of times from Messianics and others, other Torah keepers, Hebrew roots types, I'll ask them. They'll say they're Shomer Shabbat. I'll say that's great. And, I'm not going to say his name. There's a great Hebrew Christian scholar who he does great debates. Don't say the name if you think you know who it is. He does great debates against against Orthodox rabbis, about Yeshua being Mashiach. He's really, really a pillar of apologetics for those of us who believe in the Mashiach and also for those who keep the Torah. And I was watching a debate with him one time. He had a debate with this one rabbi who was a friend of his, a famous Orthodox rabbi in America. And they had many debates before, and he had this debate, and the rabbi thought that this person, this Hebrew Christian, was a Messianic Jew, because, the terms get convoluted. He says he's a Messianic Jew, so he thought he kept the Torah, he thought he kept Shabbat. And somehow in the debate, I remember the conversation comes up about what you do on Shabbat, and then the rabbi, he started to understand something is off. And in the question and answer section, he says, you don't cook on your stove on Shabbat, right? And then the Hebrew Christian guy says, we try not to. And you could see the opinion of the Orthodox rabbi's face just change. It just changed. Suddenly he went from, I thought you're my friend, to, oh my gosh, you're Mecholel Shabbat. He realized he's a Sabbath breaker. He said, what do you mean you try? You either start the flame or you don't. There's no try to this. I thought you said you keep the Shabbat. You're Shomer Mitzvot, Shomer Shabbat, right? And so he realized, and then he went very hostile. All their other debates have been very cordial, very friendly. There's a mutual respect. This other, the rabbi's thinking this other guy's a Jew. He's very well educated, and he believes that Yeshua is Mashiach. At least he's Shomer Shabbat. Because in Jewish culture, I don't mean today with a lot of the liberal stuff, but over the many, many centuries, someone who was known Mecholel Shabbat, a Sabbath breaker, could not be buried in a Jewish cemetery when he died. Not allowed. Even the murderers didn't want him buried next to them, you see? So this is very important that we understand. We don't try to rationalize this. Well, one of the arguments I hear from people, back then it was very hard to start a fire. You had to get the kindling, and so there was labor involved. No. Flint and steel with some leaves. I was an Eagle Scout, a Boy Scout. We used to go camp. It's easy to start a fire if you have flint and steel. In the ancients, they knew about this type of technology. This was not high tech. So, no, you cannot escape from that. So, friends, if you imagine yourself to be Shomer Mitzvot, or at least Shomer Shabbat, someone who keeps the Sabbath, you cannot start a fire on the Sabbath day. You cannot go over to your gas oven and take your match or the spark or whatever and boom. That is a direct violation. It's listed right here. It's listed right there, verse Gimel. It spells it out just to make sure nobody thinks, oh wait, that's not really malachah. That's easy. Nope, there's a special thing about fire. We're not supposed to start a flame. If you periodically start a flame, you are currently a mecholel Shabbat or mecholelet Shabbat. You're currently a Sabbath violator, okay? So that's there. And this actually would be an example of what I would say. This might be a hook because we don't know the reason for it. Adonai is not saying, what your benefit directly is from this, right? Okay. So do not kindle a fire, the whole mishavotechem, in all of your mishavotechem, all of the places where you yashav. It's hard to see. This is from the word yashav, to sit or to dwell. Any place where you dwell. When? Beyom HaShabbat. Okay, you know this word. So we won't bother translating, it's so clear. Verse Dalet. Vayomer Moshe El Kol Adat B'nei Yisrael Lemor. Okay. Then Moshe said, El Kol Adat B'nei Yisrael. We have another construct chain. Look at this. Wow. It's getting kind of long here. Look at this, guys. This whole thing would have been read in ancient times as if it was one word. Those 5 words together. The El is not part of the contract chain, but you got the makef, okay? That's why El has the short vowel. It's a goal here. Okay, you see it? So originally this would have been like El Kol Adat B'nei Israel, as if that's a compound word. El Kol Adat B'nei Israel, although we don't do that anymore today, but that's what's happening. So unto all the assembly of the children of Israel, Le'emor. This is infinitive, saying. The Aleph kieses, that's why it's weird. That's why there's a sere here, in case you're wondering. So here's what he says. Zeh hadavar asher tziva Adonai le'emor. So he's making it very important, everybody understands. What's zeh? What's zeh hadavar? What's this mean?
This the word. This is the
Good.
word.
This is the word,
It
or
is.
this is the thing. Asher
This is the thing. Which
tziva Adonai
commanded Hashem that commanded.
le'emor.
Hashem commanded. To say,
Good.
saying,
Very nice.
or
Very nice. Good.
to say.
Nice. Good job. Good job. Hey, verse hey we're on now, verse 5. So this is a bit harder to recognize, this next verb. This is an imperative form. It's a command, and it starts with a lamed. Starts with a lamed. So it's that's right.
Lakach from the lakach.
That's right, from lakach. Okay, so
Take he.
good, take. That's right. It's the plural form, kichu. You all take. Me'it techem. What's eat mean? Eat. Not the English eat. Not ka'an.
You.
Direct object.
That's a good
Direct
guess,
object.
but not. In this case, eat means with. It's a synonym
Okay,
of eat.
yeah. With
Okay?
you. Yeah,
From with you.
You.
Me'itchem. So that is you have it already, okay? So from what you own already. Kehu me'itchem, that's why it's me. From with you all. Now what are you going to take? Teruma la'Hashem, teruma la'Adonai, kol nediv libo. Okay, what's teruma? Teruma?
Offering.
An offering. Offering.
Free will.
Yep.
Oblation.
And just offering, which say offering, but you're right, we are going to get free will in a bit.
Offering.
Ladonai. What's Ladonai?
Offering to Hashem.
Yep, that's right. Now, why is it a patach under here, guys? Who knows? Why is it patach? We start with the yod. Why is it patach? What's going on here? And careful, don't say God's name. Don't say God's name. I'm not trying to trick you.
Special rule for inseparable preposition.
Yes. Very good.
Yes, Rabbi. Yeah.
Yes. So you're right on it. It's a special rule, and we actually have it up here too. Look, Ladonai, you'll see it a lot. And it's the same thing that happened here. Do you guys see my pointer on the second line? La'asot. So you can't have 2 shwas in a row, so you lengthen to a patach. So the way that we spell out Adonai, the ketiv form of Adonai, it's Aleph, Dalet, okay, and then there's more stuff, okay? And it starts with a chataf patach. It starts with a composite shwa. So if you try to attach a lamed to it, and you want to put a shwa underneath, it's not allowed. 2 shwas in a row, so we lengthen to the patach. So that's what happens over here. It's written yod-he, waw-he, but we're supposed to read it Adonai. And so look, even the text itself has it pointed as if it were Adonai, because that's how our ancestors memorized the text. Even though the scribes transmitted it with yod-he, waw-he, it was memorized as Adonai, and so it's pointed that way. In other cases, it's pointed as if it's Elohim, right? So again, the utmost respect to the sacred name of God, which we do not pronounce. Okay, so an offering for Hashem, Now here's where you get the free will part. Kol nediv libo. So kol, anyone, nediv. You know nediv? It's from the verb nadav. Nadav is to be willing, right? Like you have something stirred up in your heart and you want to do something good. So anyone who's nediv libo, who's stirred up in his heart, is really what it means. Has a willing, his heart, libo, from lev. Okay, so what are these people supposed to do? Anyone who has it, me'it techem, from with you all, they are yavi'eha et teromat Adonai. Okay, so what's this verb from? Yavi'eha. What's that verb from?
From
Bo.
From bo. Very good.
Bo.
What's bo mean?
Bo.
Bo.
What's bo mean?
Come.
To come. That's right. And
come.
what is the
Enter,
yod?
come.
What's the yod? Tell me. What form is it because of the yod? Somebody said it, I think. Quite.
Hollow verb.
You're right. It is a
Ifil.
hollow. Excuse me. It is a hollow verb, but the yod is telling me something. Which binyan is it? It's not call anymore.
Ifil.
Ifil. Yofi. Very good.
Il.
So
Hello.
to cause to come means what in English? To bring. Yofi. Very good. So yevi'eha, she'll bring it. The reason it's ha here
It.
is this is referring to the teroma.
Teroma.
See, she's feminine. Teroma, the offering is feminine. Yep. She'll bring her.
Shalom, Rabbi. Rabbi.
Yes.
How about to carry?
How about what?
To carry.
To carry is actually where we get the word mincha from. That's nacha. So so we actually, mincha is a gift which was carried, right? So that's a good question. So it's a little bit different, right? So nacha is your carrying.
Yes,
Okay? So
To that.
sure. So Yavyeha, he shall bring it, just the article, terumat Adonai. So look, what is this again? We have construct. Teruma with a hey becomes terumat. So that means
Offering.
yeah,
Offering to
almost. You're almost correct. Terumat Adonai.
free will.
What's the tav? Tell me. Anybody? Why is there a tav here?
Construct.
Yes, construct.
Offering of.
Yes, that's right. Shall bring the offering of Hashem. Now here's the items that it can be: zahav, vachesiv, unechoshet. Zahav.
All gold,
Okay, vachesef,
silver,
good. Okay.
silver.
So why is there a kametz under here? What is going on here? Why isn't it a shwa? Usually with the conjunction we put shwa. Does anybody remember this obscure rule? It's okay if you don't remember. It's kind of obscure.
Rabbi, it's I think it's supasuk.
You're
Or
close.
The tone syllable.
Yes, Yofi, very good.
Yeah.
Very good, because usually the syllable accented is the last syllable. But look, we have tipecha here. This tipecha, meracha, tipecha, this is tipecha. So the accent is just before where we put the vav. And not always, but often, if you're going to put the vav right before the tone syllable, like Kuya said, then we have an off sound here, either patach or kametz. Okay? So that's that. Again, it's obscure. Don't feel bad if you didn't know it. Vachesiv and silver. Ooh, nechoshet. Now look, now it's ooh. Why is it ooh? Here he's comments, here he's ooh. He's like, seems like it's disobeying all the rules. What's going on? Why is it ooh?
Second shwa.
That's right, 2 schwas in a row.
Second.
So it's the bump schwa rule. We expand our rule instead of just saying bump, we'll say bump schwa. So if you start with a labial letter or a schwa, he's going to lengthen to ooh, right? So ooh nechoshet. Or nechoshet. What's nechoshet? Anybody know this word?
Bronze.
Okay, so I actually disagree with bronze at this time frame.
Copper.
Yeah, copper is better. Yeah, but the reason is later in the prophets, many hundreds of years. Okay, I got to mute his phone. Many hundreds of years later, it can be bronze, right, or one of these other alloys. But I don't think the Israelites had access to that technology at this time period. So I think it's probably just copper. The two words are synonyms in Hebrew. Nechoshet, it can mean copper, or bronze. It can mean either one, right? So in some translations they say bronze, but I don't think that's right. I think copper is better. The nechushtan, the serpent in the wilderness, I believe it was made of copper. There's a copper. And actually, nachash, remember, this is a very special word. This root, nachash, the Semitic root means to shine, which is why we understand, as Dr. Heiser enumerates in his book, Supernatural, and also in The Unseen Realm, he talks about the serpent, the nachash at the Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, that he could have been the shiny one, which would be why Eve wanted to emulate him, right? He's very shiny and luminescent as a Bnei Elohim, one of the sons of God. Okay, Unachoshet. Verse Vav, 6. Utachelet ve'agaman ve'tola'at shani ve'shesh ve'izim. I'll just translate these. These are kind of hard. So tachelet we just call that techelet. And this is a purple to a kind of an indigo, somewhere in that range of color. And it's strange. Some lexicons say purple, like others, like a violet. Others will say it's like a light blue. Others will say it's indigo. The reason is it was discovered by a great rabbi in the 1800s, a Polish Jewish rabbi who went to the Holy Land, and he researched for many years, and he finally found the sea snail that was used, that was lost from ancient times to make this dye. And it turns out, if you make it in the sunlight, it becomes a certain color. If you keep it in the shade, it becomes a certain color. So actually, all the lexicons are correct. It could mean any of those colors, depending on how the processing is done. Beautiful. So techelet. In the Yiddish Bible, it just says blau wool, blue wool, which is lacking a little bit. Vargaman in purple, and Tolad Shani, this is like the color of an earthworm. Veshesh, shesh, this is an Egyptian word. In Egyptian, it's like alabaster-colored linen, right? Specifically linen that looks alabaster color. The izim, and goat wool. It's wool from izim, from goats. Okay, let's move on. Any questions before I change slides?
Excuse
Question.
Go for it. Lady
me.
first, just go ahead. Yep.
Please.
La-
Yes, please, sir. Verse Gimel.
Uh-huh. Gimel? I don't hear you. Did your mic cut out? Okay, let's go to the gentleman. Maybe we'll come back to you in a sec when your mic's working, okay? We can't hear you.
I think yes, biggest problem with their internet.
Yeah.
Anyway, this talking about a literal fire. The age is a literal fire.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you came back for thank you.
Verse
You were muted and then
Gimel
you're back
po.
for thank you. Go ahead.
Law.
Yes.
Mauna ka na, Biggie.
L.
Go ahead, Biggie.
Go ahead. Vicky? Oh, I think you're maybe you type your question, huh? Try to type it. I think you're in a type.
Sorry.
Oh, you're back. Go. You're out again. The Nachash doesn't want you to ask your
you.
question. Oh, you got thank you. That's the only thing we heard.
Is it PL, sir? Is it PL? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, guys.
Oh, no
I'm
problem.
really sorry, guys.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Is it PL, sir? Is it PL?
Yes, it's a PL word. Yes. PL. It's from the verb BL. Be air,
Okay.
but because
Thank you.
it's got a guttural in the middle letter, some weird spelling issues happen. Nice question. Okay. Dr. Vera, what was your question?
Related to Biggie, one question related to Biggie. What gives us a clue that it's a PL because of the
Okay. So what happens is this patach is actually the hint in this case. The patach, right? So the ayin cannot be doubled, so he actually ends up causing some lengthening over here, and then he can't have the vocal schwa, so he takes the composite schwa. It's actually the opposite way, copying this one. So it's from BL. If it was just a man doing it in the perfect, then we'd actually have the lengthening still. You understand? Yeah, so it's a bit advanced. So what the rule is called, if you want to look up in a grammar, it's called a ayin guttural PL conjugation. Ayin guttural. So not because this is ayin, because remember the position? Pei, ayin, lamed, right? So this is the ayin position, and there just happens to be an ayin there. But any guttural would have caused this to happen. A chet, or a hey, or an ayin, or an aleph. We'd have this spelling happening here, okay? And the gutturals, they also like to attract ah sound with them. So, yeah. We haven't actually gone through that, so don't feel bad if you don't know the pointing for that. You haven't memorized that yet. So, okay. Any other questions before we go on?
Yeah. So the age there is a literal fire.
Yes. Well, the Peshat meaning of the text is a literal fire. There's a remez meaning that some of the rabbis like to go into that say we learn from this that you should not start a fight on the Shabbat, right? Like don't argue with somebody if you don't need to. Be more giving, be more willing to not contend with people on Shabbat. But you have to always be careful, guys. When you have a deeper level interpretation of the scripture, that does not invalidate the Peshat meaning. I remember watching a video by, 619 Ministries or one of these Hebrew roots groups that, they're trying hard, but they really don't know what they're talking about. What is it?
119.
Oh, yeah, 119 Ministry. Yeah, somebody sent me a video and they asked me some questions. And I was watching, and they're trying to invalidate some of the rabbinical interpretation on one of the mitzvot, and they did this sort of thing. They picked on Chizkuni, and he said, look, Chizkuni says that the deeper level interpretation of this is such and such, blah, blah, blah. They didn't say the words deeper level. That's, I understood, it's Chizkuni. He likes to go deep, right, from the Mikvot Gedolot. So that someone had fed them this thing, and then they just basically said, so see, it's not that. So they thought that you can invalidate the Peshat clear meaning because of the deeper level meaning, and it doesn't work that way. Peshat stands, but the deeper level so we can get out those gems. Hashem is infinite in his complexity and his knowledge, so he can give us more than one lesson from the same few words. So I think what you're getting at was the remez meaning to this verse is that don't start a fire means don't make people angry, because in Hebrew the word cham, which means heat, if you want to say ani cham, it means I'm angry, I'm hot, right? I think a lot of languages have this kind of analogy. Like, don't be so hot and bothered. We might say, why are you so hot and bothered? If someone's moody, you can say in English. Did that answer your question, Doc?
Yeah, another. So does that mean like in the literal sense of kindling a fire, like what you said earlier, that lighting the stove,
Yes.
so that involves fire.
Yes.
But now that has something to do with cooking. What about the current system of cooking, like electric stove?
That's a very
or
nice
induction?
question. That's a very nice question. So I'm not going to give you the standard. The standard Jewish answer will be like, no, don't use that either, right? But technically, it's allowed if you've started before Shabbat, right? Even the flame. If you start the flame before Shabbat and then the flame just lasts, that's allowed to cook on that. You see, so you start your stove before Shabbat, then it's allowed. With electric stoves, I think it's fine to use that. This is just my interpretation, just my techana. If I was to make a techana on it, I would say I think it's fine to use an electrical appliance, microwave, something like this. It's fine. Now, you should understand this is just my opinion, so I don't know if it would stand up at a full Beit Din, because the Beit Din, they have another thing where a lot of times the sages, they don't agree that you should show your mastery over creation on Shabbat, but this is something that we violate already, because we're having a meeting on Shabbat, right, using technology. So I don't really think I don't agree with the claim that you can't show your mastery over creation on Shabbat. Like, that's why you can't ride a bicycle, for example, right? So I disagree with that particular tachana, that hedge from the sages. And so because we disagree with that, and so does the Beit Din over our organization, they disagree with that you can use technology on Shabbat. So that doesn't apply here. So because of that, it's okay to use then like a toaster oven that's electronic, or a microwave or something like this. Okay?
Yeah.
Good quote.
And about the Sabbath day journey, can you expound on that?
Yeah, this is kind of deep. So traditionally, the Sabbath day journey, it was limited to 3 Roman miles, right? Like, you could walk for 3 Roman miles, but you couldn't use a beast of burden like a horse or something like this. And this, it gets a bit dicey, because my opinion on this is a bit different than some of the elders in our kahal, and they're all great people. So I usually cede to them on this particular point. So personally, my own interpretation is we should not be driving cars on Shabbat, right? And so that means being involved in a jeepney or any sort of thing like that. And it's a bit of a conundrum, because we're supposed to meet on Shabbat also, right? And we don't have an Erev. We don't live in a community altogether. So on this, I would say that ideally, it's best not to drive a car on Shabbat, because the combustion engine, there's stuff happening there too, right? So you have a kindling of a flame that's happening. Maybe if you have an electric car, there's a way around this, right? You're using one of those little e-scooters. Yeah, so because the Peshat meaning of the text, I think it's very dangerous when, and again, and this is, the elders have some great points here too, so I'm not like saying, oh, they're wrong, I'm right. We all have opinions on certain things. This is normal. Different rabbis will have different opinions on things too, right? So it's normal to have that kind of disagreement, right? So, but it's one thing I want us to be careful of is not to become inoculated against the Peshat meaning, the plain meaning of the text, right? So even if we do come to this, okay, look, there's one commandment that says we're supposed to congregate on Shabbat, and there's another commandment that says, you're talking about the Sabbath day journey, right? How far is acceptable, right? And so oftentimes you have 2 commandments which are in conflict, and we have to decide which one is the greater commandment. So I understand the argument that the greater commandment is to meet, right? So in that case, that's kind of the rationale of our elders, is that it's more important to meet, i.e. when there's no COVID or whatever, that's why that's happening. So there's a strong argument to be made from that. And actually, most Messianic congregations in the States, they go with the better to meet than to not drive sort of thing, right? So it's just, if you do it, I would say anytime we go against the tachana, we have to make sure to do it Shabbistically. That's how my rabbi used to say, well, try to make it Shabbistic, how you do the thing, right? So some people, they have work on Shabbat, and they're trying to feed their family, right? It's an issue of pekuach nefesh. And their job, they're going to get fired, right? If they say, I can't work in Shabbat, okay. So we're not saying it's okay to work on Shabbat, but there's another commandment that you don't want to starve, right? There's a possible life risk here. So for those people, when I talk to them, I say, look, try to do it Shabbistically. Make that day at work different than your other days. Like maybe you work harder all the other days of the week, and that day you kind of coast some on your work. Maybe don't tell your manager what you've accomplished on Friday. So if you have to do this on Shabbat, you can at least breathe a bit more, think a bit more about Shabbat, maybe cut out of there a bit early, something like that. Again, it's not ideal. We live in this world where we don't have an ideal system. We don't have a theocracy. So sometimes we're trying to look at what is the least amount of violation that we're going to do. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yep, thank
sure. You. And actually for doctors, there's even, for those of you who are in the medical profession, there's because of pekuach nefesh, because of the life risk, you're even allowed to be at work if there's even a small chance that you'll save someone's life. Let's say there's a 3% chance, we'll say 5% chance that they're going to call someone into the emergency room or something like that, then yeah, go. Now, if you're a dermatologist and you're doing removing warts or something like that, then no, not permitted, not really permitted. But you might say, but wait, maybe I'm removing some cancerous. Okay, you can schedule that around Shabbat, right? Those things are usually scheduled. It's not like they bring someone in the eye. Oh, he's got a cancer growth, on his finger. Quick, remove it. Where's the dermatologist? I mean, you can say, okay, come back on Sunday and remove it, right? So, yeah, all right. So let's move on. We're done with this slide. Let's go to the next. Let's check our time, see what we're doing. Nice discussion so far. Oh my gosh, it's 4:45 already. Okay, I think I'm just going to fly.
Rabbi,
Yes.
a question.
Go ahead.
Is it the burning fire related to melakha? Because the melakha is, correct me if I'm wrong, melakha is something that related to occupation or work or business.
Right. Melacha is any kind of work, right? Any kind of work, right? So I believe that
this is different. This is different.
Right. The reason this is enumerated separately is because this is like a different beast. Like I said, sometimes people, they make the mistake of saying, oh, it used to be hard to burn a fire. You had to hit the rock on the flint. No, it always was easy. Okay. Not always. I'm sure when the first Uga discovered how to make fire, it wasn't easy. Right. But our ancestors, they had tools, they had implements. You're in the desert. It's not raining all the time. You're not dealing with green firewood. It's not hard. Okay. It's not a hard thing. Right. So you're not supposed to make the fire. That's why I think this is very, very specific. If you're using gas ovens, guys, to start a fire today to warm up your food, don't do it. Eat it cold. Make sandwiches. Have peanut butter sandwiches. There's ways to get around it, okay? So, yeah, whether this applies to the combustion engine or not, that's a whole nother argument. Okay, if you're coming in already and you think you're late, don't worry, you're not late. We're doing for those who want some extra instruction, we're doing the first Aliyah, all in Hebrew. I didn't want to force everybody to be here for 3 hours. So we're just going to continue on. I'll give it another 16 minutes. We'll do a hard stop at 5, and we'll get into our normal Torah portion discussion, okay? So just stick with us. If you're in here, you're rolling in, you're like, what is going on? What did I miss? You're technically 15 minutes late because we're supposed to start at 4:30. But I notice people don't usually roll in until 4:15 anyway, so let's just continue on, okay? So I'll probably speed it up now. We have 2 more slides to get through the first Aliyah of Vayaqheyl, okay? So, verse Zion. And again, you understand, when we say that different leaders agree on different interpretations, this is totally normal in Jewish culture. Oftentimes, if you go to one of these, there used to be a website, askmoshe.com, and I remember I asked them things, sometimes I'd ask them these things that I thought were difficult, and sometimes they just say, you have to consult your rabbi, right? Because because the leadership is allowed to make halakhic decisions based on the location, right? Based on the specific oppression or lack of oppression or whatever that a community goes through in that place. That is what it means when Yeshua says, where 2 or 3 are gathered, there I am, and gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. It means when he says you can bind and loose, whatever you bind and loose on earth will be bound and loose in heaven, he's saying about halakhic decisions, right? Those who are versed in the law and the Torah are able to make binding techonot, decisions on how the community can treat a certain law more lightly or a little bit more heavily. That results in what we call a mishpat, a judgment. Okay? Okay, so the next verse, the orot elim me adamim, the orot techashim, the atzei sitim. Okay, so this is interesting. So this is just talking about and hides of elim. Again, I'm going to go faster. I'm not going to call on you guys so much now, okay? Just a little bit. Maybe we can do 7 minutes. Elim, who knows what an ayil is? Ayil. Talking is allowed right now, by the way, for those of you who are just rolling in. You can talk on your mics if you want. What's an ayil? Ayil is a ram, right? So these are literally an olah with a hay is a hide, like a skin. So skins of rams, so like ram leather. Me adamim, and the root here is dam or adam from adama, which means to make it reddish, right? So rubbing it with tanners, they use this thing called rettle, where sometimes have you seen there's like a reddish look to leather? They're rubbing it with this thing. It helps preserve it and it makes it this color. So rub with that thing that makes it like adami or adomi color, reddish. The orot techashim. Now this word, what's a tachash? Who knows what a tachash is? Not a tuchas, a tachash. Tachash. Okay, the right answer is silence. Nobody knows what it is. Okay, so I usually translate this tachash skins, tachash leather. If you guys remember, a couple weeks ago I showed that there's some of the sages, they say it was a one-horned creature and Moses killed the last one, so it might have been a unicorn. Unicorns might have existed. This is the tradition that it had one horn, and no, it's not Cain. He's still hanging around. And then Moshe killed the last one. That Hashem made it appear before him, and that's what was used. So maybe, we don't know. So some lectionaries, they say, lexicons say rock badger leather. Others, they say porpoise skins, right, or whatever. So who knows? We don't really know. So tachash leather, va'atse sitim, and also acacia wood. Usually shittim, here it's sitim. Verse chet, v'shemen lema'or. What's shemen? Anybody? Shemen. Oil? Good. Lema'or. What's lema'or?
To
That's
light.
right. To make ore. To make
light.
ore. Right. Very good.
Light.
Yep. For illumination.
To make light,
Nice.
right?
Uvesamim leshemen. Okay. What's vesamim? Who knows what a vosim? Actually, this is usually vosim.
There's some
It's like aroma.
fragrance.
It's something that.
Fragrance or
Spice.
aroma.
Yeah, it makes an aroma. It's like aromatic.
Spice.
Right. And that's like spices. That's right. Spices. They have this aroma. And why is it u here, guys? Why is it u instead of ve? What's with the shurik? Ooh.
Labial.
Nice. That's right.
Bump schwa.
Bump schwa is in front of a labial. So that's right. The bump schwa. Actually, both. Look, there's schwa and there's a labial. So pick your choice. Either one of these, the schwa or the fact that it's a bait, can make it ooh. And aromatic spices, leshemen, for the shemen, for the oil. Chamishcha, the anointing oil. Chamishcha. You see Mashiach in there, right? Mashiach. So you can recognize that.
Messiah.
Yeah, that's right. Veliktoret hasamim. And for the liktoret means to make thick smoke, to make it smoky. Although a lot of times this gets interpreted as to make incense, right? But it's to make thick smoke of hasamim, the spices. Okay? So there was a special kind of smoke that was made to cover the Aron HaKodesh, to cover the Ark of the Covenant, so that nobody could see it. It's Hashem liked the smell. It's a reach nechoach and a pleasing aroma, but it's also to protect the other Levites so they don't get tempted to go touch the thing, right? Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. I'm going to go see it. And before you know it, he's entered the Devir, the Holy of Holies, and he's zapped, right? So it's to protect them. It serves two functions. It's pleasing to Hashem, and it protects his servants so they don't get tempted. It's too holy for most of them. Ve'avnei shoham. Avnei shoham, this is kind of hard. This is like lapis lazuli, probably, that kind of stone. Lapis lazuli. Some older lexicons, they'll say it's just precious stones. Others will say it's onyx. Again, it's a little bit doubtful, but I've read some good interpretations that it's probably lapis lazuli from Jacob Milgram and some other good scholars. Ve'avnei miluim. So what's avnei? Avnei. What's happening there?
Stone.
From Eben.
Construct.
From
Nice.
Eben.
Even
Stone.
from the word.
Very good.
Evan.
Very good. I heard a couple of you got it. That's right. It's a construct state of Evan from stone, right? Oh man, I'm just gonna leave that, okay? The computer did some weird stuff. So stones of miluim. Miluim means setting, like putting it, like if you had a ring with nothing in there and you want to put a stone in, the setting is there. So stones to fill up the settings. La ephod, for the ephod. Notice it's the is there from ha. La ephod, for the ephod. Vila choshen, and for the choshen. Who knows what choshen is? This is not a vocabulary word you've had. Choshen means breastplate, and for the breastplate. Why is it kametz here and why is it patach over here? What's going on? Why is one? They both mean the. For the ephod and for the choshen, for the breastplate. What's going on? Who knows? Kind of weird, huh? Okay, I'll just tell you because time. What's happening here, the aleph cannot take a dagesh. So the ancient Hebrew word hal, like the Arabs still say al, like al Malik is the king, right? Al. We used to have hal before Bible times, right? So that was the. So the hey goes away, but the lamed, he wants to go inside. He can't, so he lengthens the short vapatak, the long comets, so for the ephod. But with a harsh guttural, like a hey or a chet, there's no need to double the guttural. So instead, he just keeps the normal patach from hal. So, and the choshen. That's the rule. That's the complex rule. It's okay if you didn't remember. 10. The whole chacham lev, and everybody who's chacham lev. What's chacham lev? What's chacham?
Wise heart.
Wise.
Wise.
Yeah, that's right.
Wise.
It's a construct, like wise of heart, right? So this chacham is actually usually spelled with a comments, right? Comments. So why is it a chataf patach under here? Who knows? Why is it not comments? It's kind of a different.
Because of the abstract form, Rabbi.
That's right. It's construct. So it's a pre-tonic comments. He wants to become a schwa, right? But you can't have a vocal schwa under a guttural. Instead, gutturals prefer chataf patach. Remember, they like the sound, right? Like I'm listening, ani shomeh right? The ayin attracts that sound. So that's what's happening. Okay? Bachem, amongst you all, yavo'u, you should let him bring it, let them bring it, v'ya'asu, and let them make it. This is hey is gone. Sorry, we got to go fast here for time. Et kol asher tziva Adonai, everything which Hashem commanded. Verse 11. Et hamishkan, the mishkan, right? And of course, the root here is shachan, to abode or to dwell, to abode, right? The Shekhinah dwells in the mishkan. Ve'et aholo, sorry, I can't see the side here on my TV. It's cut off. I think that's ve'et. If there's not a vav there, sorry. Okay, ve'et oholo, and his ohel, his tent. Ve'et michsehu, and his, meaning its, cover. Et ka'asav, these are its, like the loops that hold things. Ve'et ka'ashav, and its planks. Ve'et bericho, and its beams. Ve'et amudav, and amud, it's from the verb amad. What's amad mean? Amad. Stand. So in amud or amudah, this is a pillar, right? We have, what's the amida in the siddur? What's the amida? The amida is the standing prayer, right? Yeah, good. So and its pillars, vet adanav, and it's the thing the pillars connected to on the bottom, in the pedestal, Verse 12, et ha'aron, literally the box, like the chest. So we're talking about the ark. Et badav, and its poles, et hakaporet, and its lid, the et parochet hamasach, and also the screen of the masach. Masach there is an interesting word. It comes from sachach, which means to cover. So in Psalms, this means like the clouds, right? The covering that's up in the air, right? But in this case, we're talking about a curtain or a screen, something like that. Verse 13, et hashulchan, and the shulchan, the table, that baldaiv, and also its carrying poles, that kol kelav, and all of its utensils, that lechem hapanim. What's lechem hapanim? Who knows that?
Face of the presence, bread of the presence.
Yeah, you're right.
Bread.
And very literally, I saw you saying the bread of the faces, right? That's correct. The bread of the presence means the bread of the faces. And probably, now this is from my book, it probably refers to the canisters which would hold the bread of the presence, not the bread itself, right? We're not talking about make the bread and it's always there. And this could hardly be considered a teruma offering nor something makeable outside of the Levites. Okay, verse 14. Vet menorat hama'or, and also the menorah of the illumination, the illuminating menorah. Vet keleha, and all of its utensils. Vet neroteha, and its nerot, its lamps. Vet shemen hama'or, and the oil of the illumination. We're almost done here. Let's see, is it almost 5? 5 minutes. Okay, great. We can fly through this last one. Okay, verse 15. Again, if you're just rolling in, don't worry. We're doing the first Aliyah. We started at 3:45 today, and we're just finishing up the first Aliyah. Okay. Ve'et mizbach haketoret ve'et bada ve'et shemen hamishcha ve'et ketoret hasamim. Okay, and there's our end of the clause marker, that little wishbone guy. So we're still continuing from the previous sentence, even though it's a new verse. This is because the verses are not part of the text, guys. Okay, so the verses are not part of the text. This was added later. Actually, Christians invented the verses, and it was adopted later in Jewish culture. Ve'et mizbach. Why is this mizbach instead of mizbeach? Who knows? Why is it mizbach?
Altar. It's an altar.
It is altar. That's mizbeach, but why is it mizbach? It's kind of a tricky question.
Yes.
I'll give you a hint.
Construct.
Yes, very good. Very good. Very good. It's a construct spelling for mizbeach. Mizbeach gets shortened to a mizbach. So the altar of the ketoret, right? This is of the incense cloud, the incense smoke. Ved badav, and also its poles, like its dowels, really is kind of what it is. Ved shemen hamishcha, also the anointing oil. Ved ketoret hasamim, and the spices for making the thick cloud. Ved masach, and the cover or the screen, hapetach, of the opening, the fetach hamishkan, for the entrance of the mishkan. Verse 16, et mizbach ha'olah. So also what's mizbach ha'olah? What's that mean?
Elevation offering.
That's right.
Elevation offering.
Yeah, close to elevation offering.
Slaughter of offering.
Technically, Doc, the elevation offering, we have another word for that. Usually it's actually the tenofah is the elevation offering, which usually gets translated a wave offering, which makes no sense with the size of some of the offerings. They're not waving it around. And Dr. Milgram makes a good point that it's probably an elevation offering. They would elevate it. Because we have, okay, go ahead. Yeah, that's right. The whole burnt offering. You're right. But you see why he said elevation, because ha'olah, from Allah, to go up, right? Because all the other offerings, either the priest eats it, or the people eat it, or they share. But this one, it's totally given to Hashem. It's a holy burnt offering. It all goes up. So this is a different altar. Also, the holy burnt offering altar, ve'et michbad hanachoshet asher lo et badav ve'et kol kelav. Sorry if I'm going faster now for time. Michbad is a grid, right? So the copper grid, nachoshet, not bronze, the copper grid, asher lo, which is interesting, actually. If you want to make a Faraday cage to protect your stuff from a nuclear explosion, an EMP blast, you can make it a copper grid. Very interesting. This is a copper grid here. Asher lo, which belongs to it. Et badav, its dowels, et kol kelav, all of its things, its tools. Et hakiyor, this was the wash basin we saw last week's Torah portion, the copper wash basin. The et kano, and also its foundation, its pedestal. 17. Et kal'e hechatzir. Who knows what kal'e hechatzir is? It's another construct chain. It's kind of a hard word. It's okay. You don't know it. So this is from kel'ah, which is a curtain, right? So these are the curtains that were at the front courtyard of the Mishkan. Yeah, so chatzer is a courtyard, right? How beautiful are your courts, right? It'll use this word, chatzer. Et amodav, again, it's the standing things, it's pillars. Vet adaneha, and also its pedestals. Vet masach sha'al he chatzer. Look at this long construct chain. Masach sha'al hechatzer, all of that together, right? So also the like the covering or the screen of the sha'ar. Who knows sha'ar? You should know this from the Shema.
Gate.
Nice, gate. Good.
Gate.
Of the gate of the courtyard. Good. Okay. Verse Yod Chet, 18. Et yitdot. This is kind of hard. You probably know this word. The pegs, hamishkan, of the Mishkan. Vet yitdot hechatzer, and also the pegs of the chatzer. Why is it he chatzer here? What's the rule? Why is it he and not ha? The courtyard.
The definite article before
Harsh.
Yeah.
Chet.
Yep.
Harsh.
So you're right. It's definite article. Why is it he? Because it's a harsh. That's right. So the rule is if you have an ayin.
Chet kabats.
Yes, very good. You guys both got it. If you have an ayin or a chet with a comments under it, and it's unaccented, and look, we have the tepecha over here, it's unaccented, then you spell it he, okay? Hechatzer, the courtyard.
Rabbi,
yes.
It's like Rabbi. It's like the mountains, Heharim.
Nope, that one we say haharim, because it's not the only time it becomes segol is if you have the ayin or the chet with the comments and it's uh and it's unaccented, right? Did you have another example?
Okay,
Or-
tada.
Yeah, okay.
Or he apart.
Hey, afar is the
like
one that's
he
more
apart.
common. Yeah, very good. Yeah, okay. Ve'et metrahem, and also these are like strings. This is the same word that's used in like a bowstring when you're going to shoot somebody with a bow. So the strings, the ropes that keep down the tent, right? Verse 19, we're almost done. Et bigdeha sarad v'sharet bakodesh. Okay, so also look, this is like a run-on sentence, but we have different verses in the English, but it doesn't make any sense to break this up in verses the way that the Goyim have done here. I don't know why our ancestors decided to copy this numbering system here, but anyway, et bigdehash sarad l'sharet, maybe for debating with them, I don't know. Also, the garments of the sarad l'sharet. Sarad is kind of weird word. It means like meshed. L'sharet is to minister. So the ministering vestments, garments, beged is garment, of the Kodesh, right? For the sanctuary, in the sanctuary. Et bigdei HaKodesh. So again, this is big day. This is from the Begadim, the garments. You would have had two.
Beged.
Yeah, that's right, Beged. And you would have had two shwaz in a row, so it lengthens here. The garments of the Kodesh, so the holy garments, or the garments of the sanctuary. Le Aharon, that's for Aharon. HaKohen, the priest. The Et bigdei Vanav, the Chahen, and also for the garments of his sons. In this case, it is sons. It's not children, right? Because we know that only boys become kahanim, right? You could have a female high priest, for example. So this is an example where you could say that banim definitely means sons, whereas Bnei Israel, it's children of Israel, like we said before. Lechahen, to act as a priest. And our last verse from the first Aliyah is verse 20. Vayetzeuhu Oladat Bnei Israel milifnei Moshe. Okay? When they go out, then all the assembly of the children of Israel shall exit, they should go out from before Moshe, or they went out from before Moshe. Okay? Any comments or questions before we end?
Great.
Okay, very nice.